So we've gone through the RFID door strike class that is called both in the RFID controller script and in the script that runs the Cherry Pie aspect of my project. So the next thing I want to go over is the door strike controller script, which controls the RFID reader depending on what happens. So I import the different libraries needed to set up GPIO pins, to call my door strike class, things like that. From here then we set continue reading to true. That way the while loop at the bottom continues to read until something happens, which is going to be your control C in this function here. The mode is set to 0 initially. I've got comments to say what each mode does, again just for reading purposes later and debugging tool as a debugging tool. I set up a function called endRead. It just captures the control C so it can end the while loop and kind of exit the program safely by cleaning up the GPIO pins. That way nothing gets left on. From here we created an instance of the RFID door strike with the master code in there. This is so when the MasterCard is scanned, it knows what functions to call. It's not going to unlock the door with the MasterCard. The MasterCard can't be used as a key. It's just specifically used to add or remove cards. Then I set the LED, the red, green, blue LED to red and jump into the while loop. So in the while loop, it first checks for it's just a while loop that's going to keep going until a control C command is captured. That way the program's continuously running. It's going to first see if the process button function, it calls the process button function to see if the button has been pressed. If it has, then the door will unlock. After that, it jumps in this if statement saying, okay, if we're in mode 0, we just want to scan for a new card. So we're going to call the scan new card function. It'll sit there and scan and scan and scan until a card is detected. Once a card is detected, it'll return the card detected boolean is either true or it should return it as true, and it will also return the code for that card. So once those two variables are returned, we say if card detected. So if it's true, which it should be after it gets to this point, I print card detected. This is a debugging tool later on. Again, if something were to happen to the program. And then, so it's true, and then if the code equals the MasterCard code, which is hard coded right up in here because that's, again, we don't want it to unlock the door. If it equals the MasterCard code, we're going to turn the LED to blue and set it to mode 1. So now we're in mode 1, and this is the mode that is searching to add a new card, and it's indicated by that blue LED. From there, it is going to jump out, and it's going to come back through this while loop. And we're going to say, is mode 0? No, mode's not 0 anymore. So else mode equals process add or remove card mode here. So if we're in a mode other than 0, which would be 1 or 2, or to add a card or remove a card, the process add or remove card function gets called. And from that function, like I described earlier, it checks to see if I'm in mode 1 or mode 2, and then it tries to either add a new code to the file, the codes file that then becomes a valid code to unlock the door, or it removes a code from that file so that tag can no longer be used. And it sets it back to mode 0, LED goes back to red, and all that kind of stuff happens. So this is essentially all there is to the actual control of the door strike. It's waiting for a card to be scanned. Once the card is scanned, it checks for it to see if it's the MasterCard to set the mode. If it's not the MasterCard, then we come out here. Oh, and I skipped that, I'm sorry. If it's not the MasterCard that was scanned and it's just a regular tag when we're in mode 0, it's going to attempt to unlock the door. It's going to call the attempt to unlock door function, and that function will check to see if if it's a valid code. If it is, the door unlocks. If it's not, the LED blinks red 3 times to let you know you don't have a proper tag. So that's kind of all this door strike controller script does. It's scanning for a card. Once it finds a card, it checks to see if it's the MasterCard. If it is, it switches the modes to either add or remove cards. If it's not the MasterCard, it checks to see if it's a valid card to unlock the door. If it is a valid card, the door is unlocked. If it's not, the door isn't unlocked, and it blinks red 3 times to indicate that. So this is all there is for the RFID portion. Again, the meat and potatoes of kind of what is happening is in the class I created to call these functions. Everything's pretty well commented, I think, so I just wanted to have a quick run through here of all this. The other aspect of my project is the DoorStrike front end file is what I call it, and it's just the aspect that runs Cherry Pie to unlock the door instead of if that way if you don't have a tag, but I gave somebody the password to the Cherry Pie, they could, or to the website, they could type in their PIN number or their correct PIN number and unlock the door from there. So this just imports all the libraries I need to import, creates the DoorStrike front end class to be used on the Cherry Pie, sets up a RFID DoorStrike instance and attempt to add. It calls the attempt to add a new card function. That way, the PIN number I want is added to the system. So I can remove the PIN from the file, or I can add a new one there. So once it's called, then we have functions that are exposed to Cherry Pie. That way, they can be called from the URL and things like that. It sets up a form, and in this form, it just prints at the top of the screen. You'll say hi, or it says welcome to Austin's room. A text box comes up. This text box says to enter your 4-digit PIN number. Or not, that's not the text box. I'm sorry. That is just another text line underneath this. It says enter your 4-digit PIN number. Then the text box comes up. The type is set to password. So the things that are typed into the text box are going to come up as asterisks instead of the numbers. That way nobody can look over your shoulder and see the PIN. The next thing is its name is set. Its autocorrect is set to false. That way it can't try to fill in previous passwords or correct words or anything like that. The max length is set to 4 because I just want it to be a PIN number. I don't want somebody to be able to enter 6 digits and then it gets kind of out of hand there. It's more user friendly that they can only enter 4 numbers because it's just a 4-digit PIN. From there, there's a submit button underneath that, and once the submit button is clicked with the 4-digit PIN, the action is respond. So the respond function is then called, and in the respond function, the default PIN number is 000, and if they passed a empty string into here, we just set the PIN number to -1 because the PIN number won't be -1 and it won't unlock the door. It'll attempt to unlock door with a number that's not in the codes file, and the door won't unlock. It'll blink red. If it's not, however, I'm sorry. Yeah, so it calls this attempt to unlock door no matter what. Just checks the PIN number they entered to see if it's in the codes file. If it is, the door is unlocked. If it's not, it blinks red. The only reason the PIN number is set to -1 with an empty string is just in case there's something gets messed up and there is an empty string in my codes file. I don't want them to just be able to hit submit and unlock the door. It's just kind of more of a safety precaution or a security thing. From there, the respond page returns the same page you saw from the beginning. It says welcome to Austin's room, enter your 4-digit PIN, all that, and this can just be repeatedly done, so you can try to you can enter the correct PIN number and get into the room. And that's all there is just the setup and startup for the Cherry Pie itself here at the bottom. So from here then for a backup, I needed both these scripts to run from boot up on the Raspberry Pi, because if the power went out and the Raspberry Pi started back up, I did not want to not have access to my room. So these scripts run from boot. That way, if the power goes out and it comes back on, I have access to the room. I also plan on adding a battery backup maybe later on, just so the power doesn't go out and something happens to the Pi again. Just some backup stuff to where if something happens, I want to be able to access the room still. So these are the scripts I have to run my RFID reader. The next thing I'll show will be the hardware itself, and I will give a presentation on how it runs. I'll show, I'll run through the process of unlocking the door with the proper tag, adding a tag, removing a tag, and so on and so forth. You'll be able to see that and how it's hooked up. So that's it for this part, and I'll be using my cell phone for the next part to record the actual hardware. So thanks.